Welcome to another episode of the Advice First podcast. This is your host, Robert Clark. I am joined with my special co-host, and I mean special in a good way, not in a bad way. Special co-host, Chris Ingram, CEO of Prosperitas. Oh, you just took his move. That's rough.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's good to be here as usual.
I'm very glad to have you here.
I didn't think you would do it, so I just figured I'd do it.
You better. With that, we want to introduce our special guest today. We have, as you know, for season 3, we've had a number of our team members at Prosperitas Financial on the show. That continues, and perhaps we saved the best for last, because today you get the treat of listening to and hearing more about Mr. Mack Herrera with Prosperitas Financial. Mack,
let's go. Thanks for taking my move. I'll whip out this one, the LeBron.
Whoa.
Oh, okay. You got lots of moves, huh?
Not really.
Right.
Well, just for when people jack his main move, he's got to come up with a second. He's used to this.
I really didn't think he would pull it off. But,
he can pull it off.
Yeah.
By the way, doing the LeBron, that initially makes me think about the year you've had, and I know one of the questions that you asked your grandma, one of the last questions your family got to ask your grandma, and I don't know if you want to go into this, but it's always brings a smile to my face. You asked your grandma who's the greatest basketball player of all time.
It's unfair because she said Michael Jordan, but she didn't really witness LeBron's greatness in 2016. But I'm a Kobe guy. I'm not actually a LeBron guy.
I was going to say, are you a LeBron guy?
Well, I'm a Laker fan, so I'm going to support whoever's on the Lakers, but at my core, I'm a Kobe fan.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
It's hard to say Michael Jordan when I didn't see him play. I just have
I saw him
highlight
play.
tapes.
He was amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. So how about we backtrack? Who is this guy? So tell us a little bit about yourself, and not, you don't have to dive into the career yet.
Sure.
Like, who is Mack? Where'd you come from? How'd you get involved with us? Where'd you grow up? What do you love to do? That kind of stuff.
Born and raised in Santa Clarita. Again, my name is Mack Herrera. I am 24 years old. I am the youngest of 4. I have an older sister and 2 older brothers. One of the jokes I like to make is that my family comes from a very athletic background, and so my dad's been a coach for over 30 years, and so my sister went D1 for softball. My brothers were both varsity football and basketball, and growing up I also did all the sports, but in high school I quit, and so my dad said to me, fine, but now you're going to be the doctor, the lawyer, you're going to go to college and get your master's and all of that. And so the joke I make is I went D1 for video games because once I quit sports, I just had a lot of free time because school wasn't as difficult. It was, but I had the free time. Instead of playing sports, I played a lot of video games.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah,
She was a disappointment.
Well, it's funny. One of the most interesting things was I was good at video games, and so I made a few $1,000s playing in different tournaments and things like that from different games, and it was weird. My dad was so you're going to college, you're doing all these things, and there was a moment when he came up to me and he said to me, if you want to do this, your brothers, I don't know anything about this stuff, your brothers told me you're really good, do you want to do this? And it was so interesting because when he said that, I was like, no, I don't.
Right.
But if he said the opposite, get off the game, you need to do all your study and all that stuff, I probably would have said to him, no, I'm going to do this. I'm good at this. Yeah. And so, but it was a weird dynamic where after that point, I quit all video games and I went more focused into school, and I went to UC Santa Cruz for college. I was very interested in how the world works. And so I got my degree in economics, and then also I was very interested in what are we supposed to do about it? The bigger questions, and so I also got a degree in philosophy.
Nice.
And then after graduating college, I was thinking about taking a gap year to potentially go to law school. I didn't know what I wanted to do yet, and so my father has a college planning company called College Surety, and I decided, well, in the meantime, while I'm studying for my LSAT, I don't want to be just wasting my time, so I wanted to help him grow his business, because he right now is a one-man machine, and he's doing a great job, but I wanted to help him. And so when helping him, I was introduced to Prosperitas, and it's funny because I don't know what it was, but I sat in a client meeting with Jerry Citarella, and Jerry was running a little bit late to the meeting, and I was talking to the client, and I just like asking questions. So I was, I don't know anything about this world yet, and so I'm just asking how long.
Very inquisitive individual.
So I'm asking her how long you've been with Jerry, and how's that experience been, and so what do you guys like? What does Jerry do for you, and all these different things, because I don't know anything. And she got kind of emotional. It got to that point where she was reflecting on everything Jerry's done for her, and then that meeting was kind of emotional, where she was thanking him, and I've been with you for over 15 years, and look where I am now. And the biggest thing to me in that moment was, that's super cool. That's very meaningful that someone can have an impact like that on someone else and assist them through all these different things. And so after that, I was like all bought in. I was like, I want to do this. And now I'm here, fully licensed and trying my best.
Incredible. I love that. I do want to jump back before we get to too much of the professional side. You said you made the decision to drop out of sports going into high school. Do you regret that move, or what would you do different, if anything?
That's a really good question. I don't know. I've thought about this a lot. No, I would have stayed. I quit because of something that happened in like personal life, and I just felt like I didn't want to do this anymore. But I think it would have been better if I just stayed with it. I think ultimately I would have ended up not playing sports probably junior, senior year anyway, but I didn't even try. And that kind of...
It's the dagger.
Yeah, it's like I should have gone for it.
Yeah, but it's funny that this conversation came up because I think yesterday or the day before, I said to my wife that looking back, if there was one thing I would have, knowing who I am today and how dedicated I am to like working out and fitness and like all these, if I could go back, that I would have really focused on being so good that I could have played college ball and like moved on, like really dedicated more time and focus into being an athlete when I was in high school to move up. And she said, yeah, but you might have never met me at that point, right? So really the question is that you don't, or the answer I guess is, right, don't regret anything, right? Because you are where you are today because of the decisions that you made, right? So, got you here.
What sport would have been your sport? Football?
Football.
What
Yeah.
position?
Depends. I spent a lot of time playing. I played tight end and defensive end and linebacker were the three spots that I rotated to.
Weren't you small in high school?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was. But
Yeah.
I still
I mean,
hit.
it's still kind of small, but I'm small. I'm kidding. Sorry. Jeez Louise, I gotta sit further away if I'm gonna throw jabs like that.
No, I think it's an interesting point because when you're a child, like growing up, like you're not all the way there yet. You're still trying to figure things out, and obviously you have the support of your parents and and other mentors and people and influences. Like the frame of mind I have now is you never regret anything that you actually think through, and just in that moment you think this is the best thing I should do, the right thing. Not even from like a moral or like ethics stance, but just from like logically, here's all the moves I have on the chessboard, what is the best move I can make, and then you do that. I think you regret the things that you think you should do, but then you don't. That's what you regret. And so like looking back, it's hard because I didn't do that. I think I reacted more emotionally, but it also makes sense. I was 12 years old, 13.
Right.
Well, it's hard. I think one of the things when you're younger that we have a hard time doing is looking out and seeing like how the decisions you make at that moment are going to affect the future. Whereas you get older, you're able to think longer term, and so you think through those decisions and what the impact will be long term on you. But as a kid, it's, if it's shiny, if it looks fun, if you want to do it at that exact moment, like it's all about instant gratification, not delaying gratification and really looking out to the future, right? So,
Not to make this the main topic of your podcast, but it is interesting. It has me thinking about because I asked you that because I also quit sports in high school, and I think younger than I would have liked. And I remember that year that I was like, I think I'm done. A friend's dad was like, don't quit. It's going to be the biggest regret you ever have in your life. And it's definitely not. Like, I don't think at all. And I just realized, like, some people, sport is their thing and they just like it more. And so I always think about that. So I was curious to get your take because you're a very deep thinker. If you haven't noticed, when my favorite thing about Mac is how much of a philosophical lens you look through when you just get asked the most ordinary question, or when we're talking about the most ordinary thing. We have accountability at our office, and we always reflect on one thing that we learned in the previous week, and Max is always just so deep and so good. So I wish I had an example, but I don't. But I'm sure we'll cover some examples today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So back to Mac and the podcast. You majored in philosophy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so then the other thing that I'm familiar with, and I want to dig more on, is you also run marathons. So from being non-athletic, how does that come into the fold?
And you rock climb.
Well, I love sports.
You're a pretty athletic guy.
He came from a very athletic family, so being a good athlete, I guess, isn't.
Yeah, I never felt in love with sports. I think it was more me personally, emotionally at that moment. It was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and so I never went back to it. I think in college, I still played all the intramural clubs. I did, intramural basketball. I guess I was still doing things. I think when the marathon came into play, it was something that me and my brother are very competitive, like very, very competitive. And so it was almost a joke. Like he's very in shape and very, into all these different activities. And so he mentioned to me, I'm going to go do a marathon. But kind of joking. And I said, okay, I'll sign us both up right now. And he was like, wait, what? And so I signed us both up. And this is me in college. I'm probably, 5'10", 5'11" if I'm feeling a little cocky. And and I probably weighed at the time like 245 pounds. And I'm signing up for a marathon in 5 months.
Whoa.
And so I'm thinking, I've always yo-yoed. I've always yo-yoed. Like even right now, I have a marathon in a few months. I got to get back in the grind. And at that moment, I really just dialed in. And I didn't really think it was possible. I think that's the thing with like the marathon, how that ever came into play. It was always something that in my mind, as I'm like yo-yoing, gaining weight, losing weight, getting in shape, falling out of it, I thought to myself, like I want to do a marathon in the back of my mind. And this is just to myself, not talking to anyone. Like I can't do that. I can't run 4 miles. I cannot do that. And I remember as I was like on the grind, like forward, like not going backwards, I ran 10 miles. And that was like the coolest thing in the world to me. That is like one of my favorite moments of my life when I actually just did it. And I didn't tell anyone, and it was just like, I just did that. Like I couldn't even run like half a mile like beforehand. Now I'm doing 10 miles. And then that was probably like 2 months out before the marathon. And so it became very real. Because there was a possibility, I'm not doing this, but I kept losing weight, I kept getting in shape. And then me and him did the San Francisco Marathon in 2022. And since then I've kind of been like, I just want to keep doing this. Because now it's like I've done something that I genuinely thought was impossible. And it's just the coolest feeling in the world.
Well, I like that about what I understand about your whole family, and I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of you guys maybe get that from Dad. Like, you guys definitely feel as a family like you love to challenge yourselves, set goals, try to accomplish things that you think on the surface are impossible, and then you guys really put in the work to try and get where you go, and you kind of don't take no for an answer. You go out and make sure that it happens. And I see it from your dad. Your dad does a lot of that stuff. I see it in you. From what you tell me about your brother, he seems like the same way. Obviously your sister, performed at a very high level. It just seems like it's been bred into you guys in the family dynamic.
Yeah, I think one of the philosophy of life that my dad instilled in us at a young age was always just the idea that value is intrinsically linked to difficulty. Like the more difficult something is, the more valuable it is. So if you apply that in like all areas of life, I just feel like we think that things that are more difficult are more valuable. If something's easy, no one really cares. And it's not about like the external other people, fame, recognition. It's just the internal, like personal. You do something that's hard, you feel better about yourself. And so I think he raised us with that a little bit. And so he definitely led the way. I mean, he's done half Ironmans and
he's still
all sorts of crazy stuff. He's getting back in it now, and so we'll see.
So before we go 45 minutes of talking about what a great athlete you are, pull it back to business.
As I'm out of shape.
So because I think when I look at you and I think about your potential in this business, I do think that trait, like who you are as a person and kind of some of these things, kind of relay back to why you're so good at this business, and so kind of take some of who you are as a person, your philosophy, your take no for an answer, drive and determination. How do those things translate into making you into the great financial advisor that you are and that you're going to be in the future?
I think the biggest thing is probably from the philosophy side of things, where I like to approach everything with every client as like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, what do you actually care about? It's not just so much of, here's your retirement goal and date and here's how much money you want. It's like, no, what do you actually want life to look like in the future and right now? Because it's your life. And so at some level, it's having clients think about those things and then building out a plan that gets you there. Because at the end of the day, like I say with every financial plan, all it is you're looking at where you are today, everything you're doing, from the income and savings and expenses and the mortgage and everything, and then where you want to be in the future, right? All the, like, what you want life to look like. And if what you're not doing today is not going to get you to where you want to be, then something has to change. Either you have to change what you're doing today, or you have to move the goalpost. I'm not retiring at that age, or I can't have that much money, or I can't go on those vacations. And so it's really, what I like a lot about what we do is it's never the same situation. It's always different. And a lot of the times it's just guiding clients through that, where they get to decide what they want to do. Well, if my plan isn't going to work right now, what am I going to change? Because your quality of life right now, what you're doing today, that matters. That's important. It's not all about just getting to some destination. It's about also making sure that you're living the life you want right now. And so it's finding that balance of where you're going to sacrifice, where you're not, and ultimately building a plan that's going to get you where you want to be in the future, but still maintaining your life right now. And so I think the philosophy side, like mostly just the logic side of things, of figuring out again, like, what's the best move on the chessboard. I love playing chess. I love rock climbing. I love these activities where I'm just focused and I'm not thinking about anything else in the world. I'm present, and in those activities, because I'm focused, because I'm focusing on the next move and understanding how does the next move affect the move after that. Because in rock climbing, it's not one dimensional. Go step by step. You have to figure out, okay, if I go here, now what does this new position do moving forward? And when you go to more difficult climbs, it's like, you're looking sometimes at the very least 3 to 4 sequences out, like, or moves, right? And so from that end, you're just focused, and I try to apply that. I think it translates well into what we do in terms of the financial planning and just figuring out what is the best move to make in any situation.
Love it.
So good. So good. I mean, we could wrap it there. I like it.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that was solid. What, as it relates to kind of moving into the role as an advisor, now having a book of business and several clients of your own, what's been the biggest learning curve of kind of running your own practice and serving clients your way?
The biggest learning curve. I think because I'm younger, I think the biggest difficulty for me is my age. And I think Jerry told me this, Jerry Sorella said to me, people will trust you with their life before their money. And it's very difficult for someone that is entering retirement to trust a 24-year-old with everything they've ever earned. And it's, their financial security, not only for themselves, but maybe their kids. Maybe they're still taking care of their parents. So it's so personal to them. And the difficulty for me sometimes is gaining that trust. But I think I don't want to toot my own horn. I think the thing that I do so well is I show people that I care about them, because that's all that matters. It's not about me. It has nothing to do with me. And so as long as I can show them that I know what I'm talking about and I care about them, then they feel like they can trust me with that.
Wow, that's incredible. So, like, what I didn't hear you say is, like, you let them know how much you know about the stock market or how much you know about tax planning or things like that. Like,
yeah, I mean, ultimately, and I was talking to Chris about this last week, we go over all of that, but that's not what is going to have someone trust you with all of their assets. People want the financial advisor because they want them to do that. And it was funny, me and Chris were talking, and I was saying to him just candidly, like, clients trust you to make sure that you're making the right decisions for them. And you go over it all while you're going through the financial plan, you're explaining all of it to them, but at some level, they're trusting you. And so clients, in my opinion at least, aren't like particularly super concerned with all the specifics of what's going on in the stock market and where's the S&P last week and what happens with the Apple's earning report and this and that. Most clients aren't that. They trust you to handle that. Right? And so to me it's communicating with them on the things that they actually care about. If they did, then I would, but I don't see that.
Yeah. Who are your favorite clients to help right now? Like who's coming to you and like with their situation, you're like, yes, like I'm all in. This is my favorite thing to work on.
It's funny. I really like younger clients right now. And the reason why is because I see if I help a 20-year-old that has nothing right now, forget like anything monetarily, but in 40 years from now, where are they going to be? And I'm with them along that entire journey. Like, that's awesome. Like, how meaningful is that? And so it's funny because it's almost like when you think about what you want, and sometimes, I don't know, organically, now I have a lot of younger clients. Like, it's kind of just happened. And so that's awesome. The other portion of clients are the ones that actually need the help. There's a client that I met with who was a single mother who, she didn't actually become a client. And she lost her job over the pandemic. And she had a 403B that she wanted to cash out and use to pay off her mortgage that she refinanced over COVID. That was at like a 3.75% interest rate. And I was trying to explain to her why that's not the best thing to do. Let me help you make a financial plan, and I can do all these things for you. And I think she ended up cashing out her 403B, paying the taxes on it and the penalty and paying off her mortgage. And so those are the clients that I want to help the most because they need the help.
That's heartbreaking.
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
I just threw up in my mouth.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, for any listeners who aren't familiar with financial planning, that is absolutely the opposite of what you want to do strategically. Oh, that's tough.
To your point, though, I met with a client the other day that actually I met through the junior chamber at JCI. 25 some years ago, and they were single at the time. Ended up, I knew both of them through the JC. They ended up married, so on and so forth. Long story short is that I had a review meeting with them last week, and they have over $1 million in investable assets now. Some 25 years later. But to your point, it is very rewarding. I was excited for them because they just crossed over that $1 million threshold. They were like $1,067,000, right, or something like that. And I was celebrating with them on the Zoom meeting that we had. Like, you guys, look at where you are today compared to when I met you, and you guys were just kids, trying to figure out life in the junior chamber. So it's very rewarding over time. I'm excited for you to see how you help these people get to those places. It's good stuff.
Let's go.
Yeah. That's exciting. How are you meeting most of your new clients?
It's funny, Chris just mentioned it. I think what I've been trying to do is be at every single event in Santa Clarita, and so be involved in the community as much as possible and basically network. It's developing as much relationships as possible, and it's not even about business. I like to think of it as like killing two birds with one stone, or killing a lot of birds with one stone, where especially with the community impact that I feel like I'm trying to make in Santa Clarita, I'm able to fill that bucket up of also meaning. Like, I'm involved in projects around the city that do amazing work for our community, and that's awesome. And at the same time, I'm meeting all these amazing people that are also doing that, and so you network and you build relationships. And I think organically through that, people actually get to learn who you are as a person. Because again, it goes back to clients want to work with financial advisors that they trust and that they know are feel like are good people. And so I feel like by doing that, I'm meeting a lot of people, and even, it's funny, I'm receiving a lot of referrals from people that aren't even clients, but it's just, it's just they know who I am, and so they refer someone, they're like, hey Mac, you should meet this person.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many people tell me they see you at events and how active you are in the community, and the response I get back is is overwhelmingly how amazing you are, how much they love you, how much they liked hanging out with you and spending time with you. I mean, you make an impact on people in a very short period of time and meeting them at these different events that you go to. And, people go out of their way to stop me and tell me, hey, I met, Mac from your office and he's awesome and we had such a great conversation and love him so much. You definitely, which is fair because you're just a good human being, but it comes across when you meet people and they get very attracted to you. You draw people in for sure.
That's awesome. Let's go.
How many of Chris's clients have you convinced to move their accounts to you?
0.
Oh.
Because I tell them that he's the best, and I don't know. I feel like I don't know. I'm not lying. I feel like the 2 biggest mentors I've had so far have been Chris Ingram and Jerry Citarella, and so I'll go to events, and it's funny. Like if I see a client of Chris's or Jerry's, and they're talking to someone else who I don't know, who isn't a client of theirs, it's like they'll say, oh, you're from Prosperitas, you're with Chris, and I say, yeah, Chris is the best, and then the other person's like, wait, who's Chris? And so it's like I'm just gonna gas up Chris. Like it's just the way the world works.
Mm-hmm.
There's none of that.
That's when you say, I taught Chris everything he knows.
Yeah. Yep.
Dang.
Yeah.
For the next one. Along this journey, what are some of like the big milestones you've clicked off that you're really proud of?
That's a good question. I think I don't like non-answers, but truthfully, I was thinking about this while driving because I have a lot of clients who right now don't, like, monetarily are not producing a lot of revenue towards me personally. But I was driving, I was like, why do I not care? Just being completely honest, like, why do I not care? And I was really trying to figure out the answer, right, from like a philosophical lens. And I think the reason why is because I think a part of what I find so valuable is that there's someone out there, a human being, that trusts me. And to me, that's so cool. And so it doesn't really matter if they have no assets that, even if I just make a financial plan for them and I'm not even, we're not managing anything. It's the fact that they trust me and they're taking my advice and listening to it that is so meaningful to me. And so every client I have, regardless of what they have, I think that relationship is so special. And personally, I think I've been fortunate to grow my practice, and I like to think I'm pretty ambitious, so it's not exactly where I want to be, but I'm very happy with where things are going and the response that people are having, and more important than anything, that the clients I do have, I feel like most of them are very happy. And so that's probably the most important thing, because I could be growing like crazy, but if the clients I have aren't happy, it's like, what are we doing?
Yeah. No, I think you have the right mentality. If you chase the dollars, you're going to push them away from you. But if you chase meaningful relationships and having a positive impact on people's lives, the rewards and the success will come to you. And that's what you're doing. And that's the result I see with your clients, is that they're leaving meetings smiling, having goals for the future, being pushed in the positive direction. Like you're having a positive impact on people's lives. That's what's gonna pay off in the long run for not only you but your clients, of course. And you're gonna be just fine. I tell you that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that.
I don't see. I would say. I mean, I guess Chris would be the only other one, but both of you are, I would say, the hardest workers in the office.
Well, I don't know about that. I think the partners put in a lot. I think the thing is, it all just comes down to priorities. Like, what do you want? And I gotta have this conversation with clients, because when you have a financial plan and it's not going to work, you have to identify what are the changes we're gonna make. So you have to, the client has to actually make those decisions. It's hard, and a lot of times it just comes down to priorities. What do you want? It's not, for some people, you don't want to stop going to Starbucks. You enjoy that. That's your ritual. Every morning you go to Starbucks and you have that coffee, and so it's like, okay, we're not going to save some money there in the budget. Whatever the specific examples are, it's you guiding them through that and figuring out what do you want. In terms of the hardest worker and other advisors, I feel like one of the main differences, and I don't know, very naive and very young and don't have a lot of experience, but I think the main difference between Prosperitas Financial and other advisors I've just met and talked to is I feel like most of them don't get it. And what I mean by that is I feel like at the core of what we do is building out like the financial plans and going above and beyond and helping clients with all the different things going on in their financial life. And I feel like other advisors just don't get it. They want to, maybe they want to charge for a financial plan, or maybe they want to have the client managing their assets first before doing a financial plan. And I just feel like where we're different is we don't care about that because it's not about that. And so I think the perception of, if I do more work than others, it's not really there. I think I just do what the clients need.
Yeah, but you are typically the last one in the office. You put in a lot of hours. Like you're a hard worker for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't deny that. You're definitely one of the people that turns off the lights at night.
But the difference is, and I say this to people involved in the community of Santa Clarita all the time at these events, where you have a family, you have 4 kids, you have a family, you have 2 kids now, you both have wives. It's like I have no responsibilities, and so the only thing that I have to do is take care of my clients, and so it's a lot easier for me to manage that.
Right.
Yeah, don't change that.
I'm
trying to take advantage of it now while I can.
Amber, he didn't mean that. I promise, he didn't mean that. It came out wrong. Lot going on in the world these days, right? We just election, new president, markets are in kind of a hysteria, all kinds of stuff going on. As clients are coming into the office right now, what are some of the biggest concerns you see clients bringing up in your appointments, and what are some of the key things that you're advising them on to help keep them pointed in the right direction under the circumstances?
I feel like, and again, maybe it's a small sample size, I don't have a lot of that. The concerns clients had earlier this year was a lot primarily the election, but I think most of my clients have a really good understanding of what the plan is. And so, for example, if they have a retirement account, they have a Roth IRA, and they're 35 years old, they have a reasonable understanding that this is money they're not touching until at least 59 and a half, and depending on when they want to retire, and they want how long until they actually end up needing that money, right? And so based off just the time frame alone, they have an understanding that at some level, for that account, it really doesn't matter what happens with the election. It doesn't even matter. What matters is where is that money in 30 years from now, or whatever the time frame is. And so at some level, I think a lot of my clients, and I think a lot of it is just having those meetings and having them understand what the goals actually are. Now, for accounts that are more medium to short term to medium term, but again, it's the same discussion where, maybe we don't have it as aggressive, and we have them in the appropriate allocation, so they understand that, if something happens, there might be some fluctuation, but it's not going to be as volatile as if it was 100% stock portfolio. And so I think most people understand what they have and what the goals are, and so it's managing that, where sometimes people think that it could all be over if someone wins, and so it's kind of walking them through that. For those people, it's not so much what's the investment strategy we need to change, it's more calming them down, like don't get out of the market, like we need to ride through it, and walking them through that. But other than that, the election, I think most of the time it's just people feeling comfortable with what they have. I think most people at the end of the day just want to make sure that they're going to be okay. And so I think with the financial plans that we build out and how much we back test it and we throw it up against the wall with different scenarios, they have an understanding that we're looking at these scenarios. Like, what happens if the market crashes or this happens? It's like we have that built into the software and the plans that we're building out. And so they know, my plan still works if that happens. So if that does happen with the election, we're still going to be okay anyway. And so I think the educational part of the plan and understanding what they actually have helps them. And maybe it's a small sample size, but I haven't dealt with a lot of that.
So what I heard you say is you're extremely good at communicating to your clients what the goals are and what to expect from their investments and their portfolios moving forward, and understanding what the goals are for the future based on the plan that you've built for them, and that you've allocated them properly based on what their goals are for that money, so that regardless of what the market throws at them, they're going to be somewhat insulated or taken care of and kept comfortable regardless of the outcome or the circumstances. So at the end of the day, you just told us that why you're such a great financial advisor and why more clients should continue to use your services because you're keeping them calm to the point that they don't have any concerns regardless of what the election or the outcome of the election or any of that stuff is throwing at them.
I appreciate that. I try.
No, you're good at it. No, I've heard you. You're good at it.
One of the things I tell every client is you're going to lose money. And so, for example, if they're in any stock portfolio, even sometimes bonds, things fluctuate, I tell them you're going to lose money. Like, there's going to be time periods where the market's down. That's going to happen. So it's been very easy over 2023 and this year as well because things have been very good. But it's letting them know at those review meetings there's going to be times when it's not good. And they understand these things. So I think it makes it a lot easier for them to go through these periods.
Nice. Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say on the contrary, like, what's some of the best advice that you're consistently sharing with clients? I mean, I think you alluded to a couple examples earlier, but what's coming up most frequently?
I think most of it, so there's probably two pieces there. From a financial planning perspective, the advice, so like if someone's not a client, my advice is always you should have a financial plan. You should have an understanding of what your goals are and how you're going to get there. And if you're not going to get there, what changes you're going to make. So it's just walking them through that. Like, that's the advice. You should have a plan. Mm-hmm. Regardless if you use a financial advisor or not, like, you should have a plan. Mm-hmm. Now, when it comes to the investment management standpoint, it's it depends, because I was going to say you need to trust the process. You need to understand that the market, over its history and all of the ups and downs and all the downs and all the recessions and the depression, it's always recovered. And so understand that. The reason I say it depends is because I meet people who try to individually stock pick themselves and they don't do a good job. And so for them, it's a lot more difficult because can they really trust their own decisions and if the company they have is going to recover or if it's just not a great company. And so there's that at play too. If for people that are doing it on their own, the recommendation I always give is to be a passive investor. Don't try to do it on your own and be an active investor. Invest in ETFs, research mutual funds that you believe are good, and do that.
Yeah, it's hard for investors to understand that. I mean, it's something I was complaining about earlier. There's a lot of, especially in times like this where things have been good and speculative stocks are doing well, that people start to think that it's easy to pick stocks. And 90% of the time those same clients come back out after a little while of doing it on their own, where they have some success during these times, but then when things get difficult or things start to go sideways, they start losing money, and the next thing you know, they're calling us saying, can you take over this account? I either don't want to do it anymore because it's driving me crazy, or I'm losing money now. I was making money at one point, but now I'm losing money. Because of the method that they're taking, right? They're taking a gambler's mentality to the stock market, right? Who's going to win the game this weekend, right? It's kind of the same way of trying to pick, who's, what's the best stock to pick in that individual speculative type of world versus building well-designed portfolios that are going to stand the test of time and do what they're supposed to do over the long term. But it's hard for investors to get that, especially in times like this where it seems easy. But that'll change. Once those trying times come in, that's where you become so important to them because you can guide them back to what is the right way to manage money for the long term. Serious money that you want to be there when you need it, versus that play money that you're individually investing in stocks and kind of playing that speculative market environment.
Yeah, that's why I also think it's so important to dive deeper into a client's experiences. Jerry always told me, and I believe this, risk tolerance is experience and education. And so a lot of clients, they might say that they're more conservative. But then you dive a little deeper and you understand that they tried investing on their own and they think stocks are like gambling because of that whole thing.
Right.
And when you actually educate them and walk them through it, then they're more open to what they otherwise would have been beforehand. And so I think just from every angle, it always just comes back to just understanding your clients' needs and wants and diving deeper into everything about them,
Right.
to be able to make the best decision.
Yeah.
100%. Because you're such a philosophical thinker, what's the current season feel like for you? What have you been thinking through a lot? Like, what's your mentality? What's your frame of mind? What's a quote you've repeated to yourself frequently? Like,
Ooh. It's funny. I've been studying a little bit of Alexander the Great recently, and he's just someone that it's interesting how someone could have died thousands or years ago and it could still be like a source of inspiration for people. And so that itself is a whole other philosophical thing about impact and meaning and these things.
You see like a Marcus Aurelius, and you're like, oh my gosh, that was a long time ago to still have that big of an impact on people.
It's crazy. So Alexander the Great, super interesting individual. He was tutored by Aristotle. A lot of people don't even know that, and most people know of him because of his limitless ambition, his ability just to conquer and unite people. And a lot of people also probably don't know that he was someone that very much believed in integrating cultures, and so he would conquer people, but then he wouldn't destroy their culture, he would actually assimilate them. And just this very interesting individual, and he has all these different stories that I just find very inspiring. So there's this tale I heard, and there's no actual evidence to support it. And so basically, long story short, I might butcher the actual details, but in one of the sieges that his army had, they were trying to conquer a group of people that were on like an island. And so his solution to that was they wanted to build a land bridge. It was called, I think, the Siege of Tyre. And there's a tale, again, no evidence to support this, but there's a lot of tales, and I think some of them are probably true, that his men were relentlessly at work building this land bridge. It was a giant project, and at the same time, as they're probably getting closer, they're getting attacked upon by the people trying to defend their home. And so he gave all of his men a day's of rest. They'd been hard at work. His men eventually heard someone still working, and they looked and saw, and it was him. All of his men were resting, and he was working. How true is it? I don't know, but stories like that I think are so cool, where it's leading by example. And I think that a lot of the catchphrases and old age adages, work hard, and like just these simple things, you see them through like history, and you see them through these leaders. And so for me, like right now, the season I'm in is very much as personal growth. Like, I want to get like back in shape, have this marathon in a few months. I want to make sure that I'm doing the things I should be to growing as a person, because translating to business, that's going to better help my clients. And so right now I've been studying a lot of Alexander the Great, reading some philosophy as always, but that's kind of the mode I'm in right now.
How do you study Alexander the Great?
Well, it's funny because it's going to sound crazy, but I use ChatGPT a lot. So if I'm reading like a book and I have questions, I will ask ChatGPT my question, and it will completely answer it. Then I realize I can just keep asking follow-up questions, and it ends up knowing all this history of like Alexander the Great. And sometimes I'll fact check it, and it seems to be correct. So I'm like, I'll just keep asking these questions. And so a mixture of reading, or a mixture of using AI, and then just reflecting on it.
Love it. Nice.
You laughed at my question. What do you mean, love it? Come on, man.
It was a funny
The cool
question,
kids are
but-
laughing at us, Mac. Get it out of here.
It was a funny question,
It was a
but
great
it was a great
question.
answer. Your
Jeez
question was
Louise.
funny. So, 2025 is right around the corner.
Let's go.
What would you say? What are some of the goals for 2025? Obviously a marathon coming up. Is that in 2025 or before 2025?
Yeah, it's in 2025. It's in March. I'm doing
Okay.
the LA Marathon. I want to do an ultra marathon with my brother. In Santa Clarita, I know they had the stairs challenge at Central Park. I do 100 stairs. Maybe at the end of 2024, as I'm getting back into shape, me and my brother have a challenge of ourselves. We want to do 100 stairs, like up and down in one day. And so, so different like endurance goals, things like that. Rock climbing, there's a lot of different routes. I want to do probably the easiest route. So not the hike, but at Half Dome, I want to climb Half Dome. It's called Snake Dike. And so it's some people call it snake hike because of how easy it is, but it is like you're strapping in and climbing a wall.
Okay.
For people that don't know how to rock climb, it probably looks pretty scary. For people that know rock climbing, it's not that difficult, but I want to do that. And then professionally, I just want to continue to do the best I can for my clients. I really do think the growth will happen organically. I'm starting to see that. And so I just believe the best thing I could be doing in the meantime while I'm trying to grow is just continue to do right by my clients, and I think everything else will fall into place.
That's a great answer.
100%.
Yeah.
You're spot on. Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Perfect Question.
Perfect question.
I don't want. I mean, if you're gonna laugh at the questions that we have,
Keep rolling. They're great questions.
I'm kidding. This half dome hike. How large of a scale is that?
So it's really interesting, and I'm probably going to get some of the information correctly because, like, I climbed outdoors, but never like that form of climbing. And so definitely need to do things in the meantime to get ready for it. But basically, there's never been any new bolts added to the wall, at least on that specific climb. I don't know about like anything else, but basically, it was there from a long time ago, sometime in, I'm not even gonna take a stab at the date, but basically, there's like a hold that you attach like the harness in and the clip, and you go up. It's around, I want to say around like 100 feet apart, and so it's a relatively easy climb to do if you know what you're doing. Everything's relative, but it is high risk because it's the idea that if you do make a mistake, 5 moves before the next part where you clip in, then you're falling, and you could potentially you're harnessed in still, but you're hitting that swing. You can really hit call it like a whipper. Potentially
I heard
dangerous.
Robert wants to go with you.
I'm good. I got a family. Can't.
I'll bring a GoPro.
Yeah.
I'll live stream it.
Shit.
There you go.
Yeah, not to freak you out about it. I had a client recently that was telling me how their daughter is big into rock climbing, and they were, doing this on YouTube, like that's all she does. And she was filming some really famous rock climber who ended up falling like over 100 feet and like brain damage and all this stuff, and is now back climbing again.
Was he
So free climbing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would never free solo. I mean, I've gone outdoors sometimes, and me and my brother have done some climbs outdoors that we probably shouldn't have. Probably really upset my father if he knew what we did. But
Glad you told him on the podcast.
I'm
Yeah.
I'm aware enough to know not to do that because it's funny. I'm actually scared of heights. I hate heights.
Interesting sport.
Yeah.
I just feel like I'm focused. I'm present. There's nothing else in the world I'm thinking about except what am I supposed to be doing for every single move?
Yeah.
How should my body be positioned?
If you're afraid of heights, you're literally clinging on to the rock for life. Yeah. It's one way to get over a fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at some level too, a lot of people have a misconception. So the person that fell that you're talking about in that reference, very, very high risk. And so the way I think of it is if there's a super easy climb, even if you're doing it free solo, no equipment, if it's super easy, think of it as climbing up a ladder that's 1,000 feet high. The chance of you falling is very low. It's low risk, it's high consequence. Alex Honnold, who's, if you've ever seen the movie or documentary Free Solo, he had that quote where it's, sometimes in climbing, it's low risk, it's just high consequence.
Got it.
Interesting.
But if you're harnessed in and you have all the equipment, then it's probably low risk and very low consequence if you're doing everything properly.
That's a good point.
Hmm.
Wow. What other things are you into? Rock climbing, marathons, anything else? Philosophy?
Chess.
Chess. That's right. How often do you play chess?
I try to play at least a couple times a week.
Wow.
So I have the app, and so I'll just play against someone across the world based off of like our different ratings, and so that's fun. I love sports: football, basketball, baseball in the postseason, hockey in the postseason. I watch, college, all the sports.
You have a fun question coming up. Chris just came up with it.
Actually, be able to answer the first question.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, that's true. Is it time for the questions? Oh yeah, it's time for the questions.
Is it time for the
Yeah.
questions? See,
Time
you're
for the
so much fun to talk to and have on the podcast. We lost track
I
of
know.
time.
I'm still thinking about how I'm going to study Alexander the Great later.
Yeah.
Now that I know how.
All right. So you know about the questions?
Yes, I saw them on the way here.
So needless to say, you have a huge advantage over everybody else because it's so close to the end of the year. So you have,
For sure.
I think our very first guest was Jen Brown?
Yeah.
And
Like
so
February or
it was
March.
a long ways
Oh,
away
no.
from end of the year when she had to guess what she thought these numbers were going to be. So I might have to handicap you guys a little bit, but we'll see how it all turns out.
Yeah.
So first 3 questions. The last question, we had to switch up because it was who's going to be the next president. Obviously, we know that Trump is.
If you got that wrong, that would be a real.
We'd basically have to fire you.
Yeah.
Cut ties
That'd be
with
an
you. So, where will the S&P 500 be at the end of the year?
Okay, so I did see these questions on the way here, and you mentioned them
Fair.
earlier at the office, and so I thought about it a little bit. And obviously, we can't predict these things. That's why it's fun. And I'm going to say that most things, like all things, are going to stay equal. So I think there's another meeting that the Fed has in December that could potentially cut rates, potentially not.
Mhm.
So that's an important factor. There's obviously always a lot going on geopolitically in terms of stability across different countries and things like that. Then obviously another big factor in my opinion is the economic data and earnings reports and things like that. So I'm going to do something where I think all things stay equal, and I'm going to say that the S&P 500 at the beginning of January is around 6,200, and I'm going to bank on a Santa's December Christmas rally.
Okay. Now, you have to be, because you're so close to the end of the year, you have to give me a specific number. So it can't be somewhere around 6,200. You got to give me a number.
You can take 62.
I'll take
You can just do
6,200.
6,200
Yeah.
flat. Okay. NASDAQ.
NASDAQ, same philosophy, a little different obviously. 19,800.
Down.
44,500.
Done. Now, the first question I asked to our last guest that he couldn't answer, so it won't actually be your question, unless, well, but let's see what you get. Who wins the college football playoffs this year? Who's the champ?
That's a good one. Well, it's funny. So, okay, I already know who the answer is, but there's a story. Can I tell the story?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know the answer?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, you know the answer you're going to give.
Yeah.
Okay,
I know the
was
answer I'm
gonna
going to
say,
give. I don't.
jeez,
Gosh,
like, no,
is this thing fixed?
You do have the crystal ball.
No. So in high school, there was an individual, somewhat of a friend, who was the biggest diehard Oregon fan. And it was funny because I think he went to Oregon and he took like photos with the duck, and the photo he posted on like his, maybe it was Instagram at the time, maybe it was just Snapchat, I don't know, was, you know, him doing the O. And so a meme that was kind of funny and popular was my friend created with that picture, and the caption was, "How many national championships have you won?" And so it's both him and the Oregon Duck going like this, like 0, because they've never won a national championship in football. And it's funny because one of my friends said at the beginning of the year Oregon was going to win the national championship. Right now they're still undefeated, and so I guess I have to go with Oregon. I think they're going to win.
I think it's a safe answer.
Safe pick.
Yeah, for sure. They are strong.
Good substantiative evidence, too.
We'll see.
Wasn't just the answer.
That is Mac.
Yeah,
in a
that is
nutshell.
That's so good. So good. How can our listeners find you, connect with you? Do you want them to follow you on Instagram or send you an email or what?
I think the easiest thing is if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to my office phone number, which is 661-255-9555,
Yeah, there we go.
extension 108.
Boom.
Mac, thank you so much for being an advisor at Prosperitas Financial. You make our company better. You're a good human being. You're a great financial advisor. I can't wait to see where you are 10, 15, 20, 30 years into the future. It's going to be fun to watch. I think you're going to do great things for great people, and I'm super excited to see where you go.
Let's go.
Couldn't agree more.
Thank you. I
Thanks for
appreciate
meeting us.
that.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.